Hello, everyone. My name is Katlin Harris, and I'm a doctoral candidate in the musicology department here at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Today, I am joined by our assistant professor of percussion and percussion program coordinator, Dr. Josh Graham, who will be playing with the Illinois Wind Symphony on their September 24th concert next week. So first off, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed. I'm really happy to talk to you about this really interesting piece on the program. For those watching and interesting, it's the Jennifer Higdon Percussion Concerto, which, fun fact, actually won a Grammy for Best Contemporary Classical Composition the year it was composed. Higdon is a Pulitzer Prize winning composer, but percussion concertos are not something that I see quite often put on a concert stage with a large ensemble behind them. So, Professor Graham, can you give us a sense of what are some things that are kind of distinct about percussion concertos in comparison to other instruments?
Yeah, I think one of the great strengths of the percussion concerto is that it shows often the versatility of the percussionist. So it shows how many instruments the percussionist has to master, our ability to move between different spheres very quickly, the ability to create different emotions and atmospheres when we're on different instruments. And I think Higdon does this masterfully in this work, which is one of the reasons I was interested in performing it with the Wind Symphony when Dr. Geraldi approached me with this idea. We have a few people who have become kind of champions of percussion concerti and become people who actually make full-time livings as percussion soloists. Both of them happen to be Scottish, which is I don't know if you have to be Scottish in order to do it, but they're Evelyn Glennie, who some of your listeners may have heard of before, very famous percussion soloist, and Colin Curry, who was the one who actually commissioned this concerto. And they've both done incredible work adding to the body of repertoire for solo percussionist with orchestra and band. And before them, there were some pieces for percussion concerto with soloist, but they've really raised the bar on the caliber and number of composers that have written for this genre. So hats off to them and what they've done. Sometimes we have works that are just for, like it's a marimba concerto, or there are some vibraphone concerti, or I even saw one piece that was a bass drum concerto. I don't know how much that gets played, but but I think yeah. But I think what's appealing about the percussion concerto, why I found this piece so appealing, was because it did have such contrast within it about what it asked for from the soloist and what it asked for from the ensemble and what it shows to the audience from that experience.
Can you elaborate more on what you mean by what it asks from the performer?
Yeah, so we have four different percussion setups that I'm moving between. So the piece actually starts on solo marimba. When Higdon wrote this piece for Colin Curry, she said that she wanted to write the opening as a marimba cadenza for just marimba by itself because it was Colin's favorite instrument. And so she really wanted to feature that. And so it starts on the lowest register of the marimba, and you get to really just kind of enjoy the marimba speaking in the hall, and just one of the best things to do is like get into a big hall and play the low end of the marimba. And it's like that's the whole thing. It's great. So it starts on marimba, and then the whole band enters, and then I shift over to the vibraphone, and then back and forth between the vibraphone and the marimba a bit, and then I head over to a tabletop setup of kind of found percussion instruments. So in that, I have a brake drum from a car, a metal mixing bowl like you would use in your kitchen. I have two wood blocks. I have a castanet. I have a clave. I have I'm spacing on the last couple things. I have a set of tempo blocks, which are kind of five round sounding wood blocks that originate in China. But we have this whole tabletop setup that's, kind of I call it the knick-knack setup. And then there's a drum setup, which is a pair of bongos, a pair of timbales, three toms, two cymbals, and a kick drum. Um, and so she uses all these instruments really effectively. She kind of casts the whole concerto is in one big movement, but there's these three kind of big sections through it. So there's one section that begins the work that's kind of forward moving and has a really pointed direction to it and is very driving. And this middle section is very kind of ambient and open and has bowed vibraphone and then some movement between the crotales and vibraphone and these really resonant, beautiful chords on the marimba. And then she brings us back to this really fast driving music that we hear it includes a cadenza on the drum setup that is just for the soloist.
Wow. So I think it's really interesting because to your point earlier, usually when we're thinking about concerti, we say, oh, concerto for marimba. But the fact that this is a percussion, it means you're asked to do so much because you're obviously popping around to these different instruments. And I think it really speaks to how really talented percussionists have to be in, a modern concert setting. You have to go between all of these different instruments, thinking about different styles of playing. Obviously, the amount of mallets that you have to contend with what you're doing.
Yes.
It's something I always respect percussionists for. Like, y'all are operating on a whole other level. It's almost kind of like a dance, and you're having to like kind of choreograph where you're going.
Yes.
Can you
There's
kind of
a
speak
lot
to
of
that?
Yeah, there's a lot of thinking about, okay, how many bars of rest do I have to get from this instrument to that instrument? And also to put down these mallets and pick up these mallets. Um, there are certain spots where we're actually pushing Dr. Geraldi's podium back, and I'm crossing in front of him as he's conducting because we have the marimba and vibraphone on one side of him and the two different percussion setups on the other side of him. So, just navigating that is one of the big challenges of the piece, just making sure that, okay, I'm counting these rests as I'm going to the next thing, and I'm making sure that I'm grabbing the right mallets as I'm going to this next. It's one thing to play the notes, but it's also, you have to be at the right place at the right time and make sure that part's happening.
This is just purely out of curiosity. Do you have kind of like maybe a rough estimate of how many different just mallets you have to use for this
Oh,
concerto?
in this concerto, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would say probably eight sets of mallets. So I have kind of hard and soft mallets for marimba and vibraphone that I use. I have mallets for the crotales. I have mallets for the knick-knack setup, and then I have sticks and brushes for the drum setup.
That's so cool and a lot to juggle. I'm sure it's something that anyone going to this concert is going to have a fun time watching you do all of these highly advanced changes in different techniques on these different instruments. Are there any special techniques that you actually have to use for any of the instruments that you're playing?
Yeah, one that I briefly mentioned is the bow. So I have grab my other one. Percussionists often have to play with a bow on a variety of instruments, cymbals or crotales. And in this case, I have to bow the vibraphone,
Mm.
which is just really just this beautiful sound. It has no attack, but it just kind of swells. It almost sounds kind of like a glass harmonica, if you know that instrument. Very kind of ethereal. And so it's a really great effect that she uses in the second section of the concerto. Um, I also have to play crotales, which are small tuned metal discs that sound a little bit like a glockenspiel or orchestra bells, along with the vibraphone at the same time. So I have one harder mallet in my hand, and then I have three softer mallets kind of positioned like this. So I've got the harder mallet coming out here to catch the crotale notes. Um, and then apart from that, I think she writes for fairly standard techniques, rolls on the marimba and four mallet technique across marimba and vibraphone. Um, Fairly virtuosic writing across the multi-percussion setups and navigating those instruments with a lot of finesse and ease. But the work is really challenging. But it's one that I wanted to play for a really long time. So I feel really uh, fortunate and blessed to get to do that.
Yeah, it's so great that we're getting a chance to showcase this much percussion. Because one of the other really cool things about this piece, you know this, but of course, usually the soloist has dialogue with just the ensemble, but in this case, you also get to have kind of like a mini dialogue with just the percussion section,
Yeah.
um, who are probably also having to do a lot of the things that you are having to do in
Yes.
different facets. Could
So
you tell us a bit about that?
yeah, one of my favorite things about this concerto, and one of the reasons I decided to pick this one, it was between this and one other concerto that both kind of showcase the percussion section as well as the soloist. And I really wanted a chance for my students and I to really play as a group and to connect in that way. Um, so throughout the concerto, there's a lot of doubling of the lines I have. So if I have a, a lick on vibraphone, then it's usually also being doubled on the marimba in some cases, or on the other vibraphone, or um, and there's sections where it's just the percussion section and me. We actually just got out of rehearsal where we were just doing those sections. So we were just doing the spots where there's wood blocks and tempo blocks, and they need to be in unison. And there's these big drum sections that trade between the timpani and the multi percussion. There's these really open, expansive sections where the marimba vibraphone chimes in the back are kind of filling in the gaps that I create while I'm on marimba. Um, and I think apart from it just being a great opportunity to play with my students, I think she does it in such a musical and effective way. That I've always really been drawn to those moments in the piece as well.
Well, that's great. I suppose the last question I kind of had for you is, if you're talking to an audience member, what's something that you hope they get out of listening to this piece?
Yeah, I hope they come out of it knowing a little bit more about Jennifer Higdon as a composer. She's, one of our great living composers. I was listening to an interview with her a few weeks ago where it was an interview, uh, not even an interview, I'd say it was a discussion between herself, Steve Stuckey, who was a Pulitzer Prize winning American composer that I knew that passed away several years ago. Um, and then Shulamit Ron, who's a composer that I'm working with right now as well, another Pulitzer Prize winner. So these three Pulitzer Prize winning composers having a conversation. Um, and she said that, I've kind of become known as the concerto lady, because I think it's one of her gifts is that she really knows how to position a soloist with and against and in and outside of an ensemble and to make that dialogue really work well. So I hope people kind of leave with a little hunger to learn more about her music. I hope they leave with more interest in percussion as a medium, and think of percussionists as soloists and chamber musicians and all the things that we are now. Um, and I hope they just realize, what a wonderful program we have here at U of I. We're very lucky to have the kind of band director we do in Dr. Geraldi and the kind of program he leads. We're very lucky to have the students that we do and the facilities that we do at Krannert. So what an opportunity for us to make beautiful music and hopefully be an asset to our community.
Well, what wonderful thoughts. I can't even say anything after that. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate getting to talk to you a little bit. And for people that are interested in watching this video, our concert's going to be on September 24th, and that'll be at the Krannert Center. And so hope to see you there. Thanks so much.